not sure what the consequences are going to be, but I heard Russia is about to take actions as well against the decision to release the money. I think it's very dangerous for us. Russia already said that they might exaggerate the war for that reason. So yeah, I think it's a big risk.
The European Union is facing a high-stakes confrontation over frozen Russian assets. Belgium is sounding the alarm, warning of a big risk of consequences and opposing what it calls the theft of Russian money. The bloc is now caught in a deep dilemma, balancing legal risk against political pressure. All eyes are on a key decision this week, one that could redefine Europe's stance on Russia and trigger consequences far beyond the continent. Europe is cracking from within. The European Union, once united against Russia, is now a divided bloc. Europeans are anxious and fearful of consequences. Frozen Russian assets worth more than 190 billion euros are at the center of a storm. It is a money EU wants to use to bankroll Ukraine, but Europeans fear that any move could ignite something worse from Putin. Belgium sits at the center of this crisis, because inside Brussels, the Belgian clearinghouse Euroclear holds the lion's share of Russia's frozen sovereign wealth, nearly 200 billion euros, frozen since 2022. Now, the EU wants to unlock that money, and the backlash is growing. RT News, citing a recent poll conducted by Ipsos and Belgian news outlets, published a report claiming that around 67% of Belgians oppose the EU's decision on Russian assets. Timo, a Belgian national, pointed out security risks linked with the EU's move. He said Russia has already warned of consequences, and any move would be dangerous and might aggravate further escalation. But not just Belgians. Prime Minister Bart De Wever is also against the EU's move. Wever has steadfastly opposed EU moves to steal the funds, citing disproportionate legal risks to Belgium. The Russian Foreign Ministry has already issued a blunt warning. Maria Zakharova warned of strike within no time, sending shockwaves across the EU.
Always have concern whether the money's used, and there's always going to be, some people that take advantage, but you have to weigh, who's taking advantage versus the good that you're doing. And if it costs a little bit to do the good, then you do the good.
I think the biggest risk is that the international capital will move away from Europe, which would bring about a financial crash in Europe. That's a far bigger risk than anyone is willing to entertain at the moment. Big chunk of the money will never leave West. It will be used to repay Ukraine's loans, which would mean that it will move only on paper. Another big part of the money will be nominally given to Ukraine to buy weapons from West. So again, it will be used in West, it will go to West, and the rest of it will be stolen in Ukraine.
That would be, completely illegal to just seize the assets of Russian, the Russian government, I think. Considering it would be done also blindly. So what does that mean, Russian assets? Maybe there are assets from Russian people who didn't do anything wrong as well. So yeah, I support him. Corruption is not a new phenomenon in Ukraine. So it's not going to go away, unfortunately. Well, it's all up to the governments who actually give the money to the Ukrainian government to trace that money, and you really see what it's used for. That's my position.
I'm not sure what the consequences are going to be, but I heard Russia is about to take actions as well against the decision to release the money. I think it's very dangerous for us. Russia already said that they might exaggerate the war for that reason. So yeah, I think it's a big risk.
Meanwhile, all eyes are on the EU meeting this week. The European Union will decide on how to go forward on frozen Russian assets. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen called it a moment of reality. She urged EU leaders to take a decision on the way to finance Ukraine.
This week's European Council is about facing the reality of the moment. The reality of a world that has become dangerous and transactional, a world of wars, a world of predators. The reality of this world means we Europeans must defend ourselves and we must depend on ourselves. We have been living in this world for some time, even before the biggest wake-up call of all, that was Russia's illegal invasion in Ukraine in February 2022. Yesterday's peace is gone. We have no time to indulge in nostalgia. What matters is how we confront today. We cannot afford to let the world views of others define us. And this is why I proposed two different options for this upcoming European Council, one based on assets and one based on EU borrowing, and we will have to decide which way we want to take, which route we want to take. But one thing is very, very clear. We have to take the decision to fund Ukraine for the next 2 years in this European Council. And we have already done one very important step. Last week we agreed on the sustained immobilization of Russian assets. And this is a decisive step that sends a very strong political message. It means that the Russian assets will remain immobilized until we decide otherwise, until Russia stops the war, and until Russia pays duly reparations to Ukraine for the damage that is done. And with the assets immobilized indefinitely, this is also about strengthening Ukraine's ability to secure a real peace, one that is just, one that is lasting, and one that protects Ukraine and Europe.
Germany is backing the move. Chancellor Friedrich Merz said it will force Russia to the negotiating table.
This is what it's about. To make it absolutely clear to Russia that the continuation of this aggressive war is utterly senseless. The utilization of these funds, in our assessment, would finance the Ukrainian army for at least 2 more years. We do not intend to take this step. And let me state this very clearly, but for me, to prolong the war. We want to take it to bring this war to an end as quickly as possible, ladies and gentlemen. I am aware of the concerns of many governments within the European Union. I am particularly aware of the concerns of the Belgian government, in whose country a large portion of the frozen assets are located, and I take these concerns very seriously. That is why we are consulting and why I am consulting with our partners to address these concerns. The Commission's proposal, ladies and gentlemen, is, in my assessment, in full accordance with international law and also in accordance with our international obligations. This year's outcome, so to speak, presents an opportunity. It is not enough that we dry up the revenue streams of the Russian war machine with further sanctions. It is not enough that we continue our financial support for Ukraine in Europe as before. It is not enough that we throw our entire political weight into the scales of peace negotiations. All of this we are undoubtedly doing. But clearly, the pressure on Putin must still increase further to move him to serious negotiations. And it is precisely for this, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, precisely for this that we need the decision of the European heads of state and government. And I will personally advocate for such a decision starting this evening in Brussels. The European Union's capacity to act is also measured by the question of whether, after 26 long years of negotiations, we are finally in a position to bring this trade agreement to a successful conclusion, and thereby also to swiftly put into motion the already negotiated trade agreements with Mexico and Indonesia. Dear colleagues, if in a situation like the one we find ourselves in today, and in a time such as the one we are currently living through, we are still nitpicking over minor details concerning major trade agreements that we, as Europeans, intend to conclude with large economic blocs around the world, then those who are doing so still haven't properly grasped the priorities that we absolutely must set right now.
Still, resistance is only growing louder inside the bloc. Hungary, Slovakia, Italy, Bulgaria, Malta, and Czech Republic are all opposing the seizure. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said Russian assets will not be on the table at the EU meeting on Thursday.
Győzelmet arattunk, mert ma dél bejelentette a bizottság elnök azt mondja, hogy meghátrált a bizottság, és az orosz vagyon kérdését asztalra sem teszik. Tehát a tegnap esti háttér tárgyalások azok meg küzdelmek, azok eredményre vezettek, és úgy látom, ha jól értem, amit ma a bizottság elnök asszonya mondott, azt hiszem, hogy jól értem, azt mondta, hogy az orosz vagyont nem teszik föl a tárgyalóasztalra a holnapi nap során. Úgyhogy egy győzelem már a tarsolyban. Egy közös hitelfelvételi javaslat az orosz vagyon helyett, az teljesen ellentétes Magyarország érdekeivel. Szó se lehet róla, hogy olyan hitelfelvétel történik, hogy Magyarország vállal felelősséget olyan hitelért, amit aztán Ukrajnába küldünk. Ezt felejtsék el.
Ahead of the EU summit, nationalist leaders gathered in Brussels. Orbán, France's Marine Le Pen, and Czech leader Andrej Babiš united in opposition, accusing Brussels of creating an illusion that Europe could fund a war without costing its own citizens. As Brussels debates, Russia watches. Moscow has already warned of swift retaliation, and now Europe stands at a crossroads.
So, there is an illusion which was supported by you anyway, or many of you, in the recent 2 or 3 years. So you created, together with the liberal politicians and Brazilian bureaucrats, that there is a possibility to support a war financially in Ukraine without getting the money out of the pockets of the citizens of the European Union. It was a cheat. You are cheated. I mean, Westerners, you are cheated. In Central Europe, nobody have thought it seriously. We are not stupid. We think that if you would like to finance a war, you have to pay for it. Here, there was an illusion created by the leaders and accepted by you anyway, that it is possible to finance the war and reconstruction in Europe without the money in the pocket of the European citizens, just based on the so-called frozen asset, which is an illusion. You will pay for it. We all will pay. It's a bad strategy, huge mistake, and we all pay for it.
Don't you get the feeling that the European Union is pushing for the American peace plan to be implemented? On the contrary, I have a strong feeling that Madame von der Leyen, with the full support or even the active complicity of Emmanuel Macron, is doing everything precisely to ensure that this peace never comes to pass. And this is also a matter of serious concern, because in actual fact, my deep-seated feeling is that the European Union systematically exploits crises to further its own objectives and to arrogate to itself powers and competences that the treaties have not explicitly conferred upon it. It was true with the migratory crisis, where it took on the responsibility for immigration matters. It was true with the COVID pandemic, where it assumed competence for public health. And it is true today with the war in Ukraine, which allows it to claim competencies in defense, which according to treaties, exclusively and in reality belong to the nations.
So, of course, we refuse to guarantee if there is a proposal for these frozen assets. We have the same position like Belgium. Belgium is the most important country in this debate. I was here last week and I spoke with Prime Minister of Belgium. He explained me the problem. So we will see what will be the position, because also the other countries like Italy and other countries are changing the position. So there will be a negotiation until the last moment of Council, and we will see what is the final proposal.